everybody. My name is Tegan Bristow, and I'm based, as Julien said, in Johannesburg, in South Africa. And they've asked me just to speak a little bit about the Fugly Festival and the iteration of Digital Imaginaries that took place in Johannesburg. So just very briefly, the Fugly Festival is a festival that I started out of the University of the Witwatersrand in Johannesburg, really out of a necessity to try and understand the media art landscapes that belong very uniquely to the region and not to a European or American format. So there's a long history of not documenting engagements and histories of technology from the continent. And really it's a youth festival that focuses on the region and digital making in different kinds of ways. These are the posters that we've had over the last 4 years. The Fugly, which sounds like a swear word, but it's not, means add power or add electricity in a kind of colloquial urban Zulu. And yeah, so we kind of use it as a mechanism to speak about being present in Johannesburg, which is this kind of multicultural South African space, but also the idea of electricity and power and the sort of energy that encompasses that kind of thinking. The theme this year for the festival was Tap Your Afro Source Code, which we felt fitted really well with the Digital Imaginaries events and exhibition that took place in Johannesburg, which was under the title Premonition. So really it was about kind of looking at the histories of traditional practices and the histories of traditional spiritual practices in line with notions of communication and notions of technology in different kinds of ways. And the festival hosted aspects of Digital Imaginaries, and we didn't really host the exhibition, so there was the exhibition Digital Imaginaries. We have a residency, which I'll talk to very briefly, a series of talks, a series of workshops that were linked and engaged, and various other events which are listed there, which took place as part of the festival this year. So just to kind of start very quickly, the Digital Imaginaries exhibition took place at the Wits Art Museum, which is a university museum which holds one of the most beautiful old collections of African artworks and artifacts that have been collected from across the world. Like all museums and like all kind of ethnographic stroke art museums, there's a real issue with the pieces that have been collected and why they were collected and why no one can touch them, because they belong to different kinds of cultures. But the museum kind of works quite hard at trying to engage that and unpack that in different kinds of ways. And when the Digital Imaginaries team came and spoke with Fiona, who's a curator at the Wits Art Museum, she was very excited about the prospects of having digital artists or digital thinkers or people thinking about technology and the future and data looking at the archive through a slightly different lens. So I've just got some pictures from the exhibition, Marcus Neusetter's work, which you would have just seen, and then also we had some documentation of the things that happened in the car, which you'll hear about in the next session. The work of Tabitha Razia, Kombo Chapvika, who's a Zimbabwean artist, a local artist, Minette Vari, all producing work in relation and in response to the notion of spirituality and technology and what the implications there are. And it really is about thinking about technology from a non-materialistic perspective and engaging kind of communal thinking and other forms of communications and uses for technology, or even the philosophies of technology themselves. So a lot of the works also responded directly to the archive or the collection. So Marcus spoke about his work, which had poets responding to the pieces themselves in a kind of very misunderstood and ununderstood and unpacking mechanism. The piece at the top is research that I was doing with my students around fractal mathematics. So really looking at the pieces in the collection from the perspective of a mathematical engagement. So there's really quite a lot of interaction between mathematics and cultural objects from the continent, but they were never looked at from that perspective before, because the people who were collecting them weren't really looking for that. So it's a kind of re-interrogation and re-looking at what we've started calling a kind of vernacular algorithm and what that really means. So the piece at the top there, which is replicated and reproduced in the exhibition currently, so both of these works are in a different form, really looks at African beadwork and the mathematics that exist in African beadwork and the potential for taking knowledge that exists within the beadwork, both knowledges of people and knowledges of place and time, but also mathematical knowledges into a curriculum, a technology curriculum, which is unique to the region. So this is actually a video from Tabitha's work at the bottom, but I showed it because Fiona, who's the curator at WAM, basically extracted a lot of, she saw things that Tabitha was using in her film and she found other objects like them in the museum. And this is a divination board where you'd throw the stones, which is basically like, again, another kind of mathematical engagement with chance and prediction. So one of the things that we have in the festival is a residency. So the residency is very much about supporting young digital artists from the region. Artists are not well supported, especially digital artists from the region. So this is really exciting. And this year we had artists from Cairo, from Zimbabwe locally, and also from India, and also from Switzerland, actually. So you'll see at the top there is the artwork of Joshua Chengidza, and this one is also replicated in the exhibition here. And really what he was exploring is a device called the mbira, which is a musical instrument which is played by two people simultaneously, and it produces a very, very complex sound, which is quite hard to analyze, and is actually an anomaly for digital analysis because you can't really hear it. But it's a device that's used to talk to the ancestors and to communicate through sound, essentially. So his question is, how can we make the same communication with the ancestors through technology if the mbira itself is considered a technology of sorts? I'm going to rush through this, and because I know we're short of time. There was a linked program that ran with Digital Imaginaries, a kind of workshop program. The first two images are from a workshop that we did with children in the museum as part of the museum program for kids. The other one basically is an artificial intelligence workshop looking at light and artificial intelligence. The other one is a digital spirit workshop, which happened in Dakar and then happened again in Johannesburg. So basically teaching young people about augmented reality and then getting them to make and respond to their respective cities. What I have is the bottom two is a workshop that I'll be doing tomorrow, which basically looks specifically at the beadwork and mathematics and the sort of questions that we have of how can you turn beadwork into code and what are the implications and also how do we do that. And also understanding that African beadwork is hugely complex mathematically, and it's really quite exciting. What I have is a kind of slightly unfinished video that actually Jamal's Bubblegum Club has been putting together for me, but they haven't quite finished it, but it gives us a good sense of what the festival is like. So the end is not complete, but please watch it. At Togo Yearly Festival this year, we ran 4 major projects. The first was Digital Imaginaries Premonition, which was with the Wits Art Museum, Afropixel in Dakar, and also the ZKM in Germany. This is a project that basically brings together the thinking of humanists, of the notion of premonition, what that means, our instinct, and how that interfaces with data and all kinds of other wonderful things. So a large-scale exhibition that ran out of the Wits Art Museum for 2 months, and a series of workshops that basically intersected with that. And with those, we ran an artificial intelligence workshop on digital culture. We focused on another one for kids specifically, which allowed them to color in, and then the animals that they colored in popped up and came alive and spoke to them and did all kinds of wonderful things. That was with the colored cube.
I think that kids can learn so much through doing, playing, and making stuff. So this, for me, the importance is in the play and in the fun.
I'm trying to think about digital media from the perspective of sound and what we can learn from that. And by sound, I really mean like the body and performance, space, and all of these aspects that are sometimes left out when we think about the virtual or the screen and the ways that we typically experience digital media. My masterclass was just about that, where we looked at some of my past projects and what I was thinking about and the tools that I used to accomplish those, that hopefully gave people some inspiration about how they might incorporate similar things into their work.
The other workshops that we did was an exploration of the exhibition itself and what that exhibition does. These were all linked in with the Premonitions Digital Imaginaries project.
The exhibition is the second iteration in a series of 3 exhibitions that form part of Digital Imaginaries. And the idea was initially that social scientists would pair up and collaborate with artists around the notion of digital imaginaries in Africa.
I think there is really the idea of a show as being the surface of collaborations and of different sort of research intents. And I think that for me is one of the valuable things in the show.
We also had our annual residency, which we do with Prohovasia. This year we had a very, very special focus, a sort of transcontinental focus, which had artists from Cairo, from Zimbabwe, from South Africa, from India, and also from Switzerland, who were here for a month investigating the theme of Afro Source Code, and then manifested in a really gorgeous exhibition that took place at the Point of Order with the Wits School of Arts.
Oh, the residency was great, very eye-opening. Like, I learned a lot just from the other guys. I mean, this is my first residency ever, my first exhibition ever. It was very challenging, but at the same time, I enjoyed the challenge.
Yeah, experience was good. In Joburg, we tried working here with 6 other, like 5 other artists.
Actually, it was the first time for me so far from France, so it was very great, and there's so many people, and so it was so very interesting to be with other artists from so many countries.
The other project that we had was a relationship with Red Bull Basement, which basically looked at gaming. So we're trying to understand how we can support and develop the African regional gaming sector. And then we had a final collaboration with our partners We Heartbeat, who led what they did last year, a really, really amazing residency essentially, which they call the Beats Lab, which is a 7-day lab that runs out of the Smolokon precinct for the festival, in which they produce new work. They put that all together into an event called the Vakugezi Block Party, which was a really beautifully curated piece of work. Very, very excited to have it here at the festival again. Like I said, it's not finished. All right, thank you.